So I was saying what's very important with marketing is you want to satisfy a customer. But before you just focus on satisfying the customers, you want to see all the elements in the environment that can be positively be used in your favor of growing your business. And this is called the opportunities. The opportunities are very much factors that you can take advantage of, and they come in the shape of what you find in the micro and the macro environment. And obviously in this environment, for most businesses, for most of the time, the most important one are the customers. The next thing is you want to understand that not all customers are the same, and therefore you should be focusing on a specific customer, a group of customers, either one target or multiple targets, and you need to define what are the characteristics of these targets that would be the best to focus on. And this is the role of what is called S, T, and P, segmenting, targeting, and positioning. So what is marketing most of the time? And remember, that was the first question in the first class, is marketing is about sales. Well, yes, but not only. It's about advertising. Yes, but not only. There's many other activities that you need to do, at least prior to do that. And to make advertising work better and sales work better, is you have to identify who you're selling to and who you're advertising to. So that's the role of STP. P is positioning. P is understanding the attributes, the images, the signs, the meanings, the symbols that you're going to use in order to explain what your company is about. And these, again, are much better when you have identified who's your target prior to defining what is your position. Now that you've done all of this, you live in an environment where you have threats, and the biggest threat in your environment are the competitors. So not only you want to provide value, which is the difference between what people get and what people pay, you want to satisfy them, which is what the difference between what they expect and what they get, because all of this helps to establish a relationship with the customer. But you also do all of that for a specific group of people, and you do all of this to build a relationship that is long-term, but you do all of this by creating innovations. And innovation can be from something very small that has changed to something that is disruptive. And that is the concept of just noticeable difference. You have to be competitive, better than your competitor, and you have to be something that is different for people to be interested in it. Otherwise, there's no justification for trying something that just looks the same. So I wanted to bring this up because we're going to start discussing distribution. And I think distribution is a very difficult subject, because I believe it's the one that you have to experience yourself to really understand it better. I think I can explain product, because products, everyone is involved in buying products. You buy, you download music, you go to the hairdresser, you do this, anything have to do with products in general. Everyone has some level of experience. When we talk about branding, it's the same. Everyone has some level of understanding and experience. But when we talk about pricing, I mean, everyone gets the idea. The more expensive, the less people can afford it, and this kind of concepts. When we talk about distribution, it's really more materialized by having experience about distribution. The least experience you have about distribution, the more it is difficult to understand this concept. So distribution, the idea behind distribution is the fact that there is a cost in distributing. So people who do not have experience always underestimate the cost of distributing. They think that the biggest cost, and it could be that the biggest cost is the production of the goods and services and all products in general. And it could be that this is the most expensive, but they always underestimate the cost of distribution, and that it can be done easily. That can be easily done. The number of times I had students tell me, I started my own business, I'm selling product X, and for some reason I'm not successful. Even if product X is great, even if the price is really low, you may still not be successful because you don't have the distribution. And I could reverse this. That you could have a not so good product, rather too expensive, that you don't advertise very much, but yet be successful because you have a good control of the distribution channels. So distribution is a cost, and you want to share this cost between all the intermediaries. So what are the intermediaries? Intermediaries are the different organizations which depend one another and which are involved in getting these products from point A to point Z. These intermediaries are organizations that you use in order to bring the product from the suppliers to the production facility and from the production facility to the consumers. There may be one intermediary, there may be no intermediary, and there could be many different types of intermediaries. And so because of technology and because the world is changing, this concept of how many intermediaries has been reducing for the most part. So let me explain this first. So you can be a manufacturer and you could sell directly to the consumer from M to C, manufacturers to consumers. Traditionally, the most traditional and indirect method of distribution is the channel 4, the one at the bottom, where you have a manufacturer that sells to a wholesaler. W is for wholesaler. And then you have intermediaries between the wholesalers and the retailer. So this could be people that are in charge of the logistics. And then you have a retailer, which is the store. And then you have the consumers. So the world we live in, and obviously this is even more concrete in the situation of the COVID-19, that there's this very big reduction of the people in between, where consumers are increasingly more able to get products directly from the manufacturers. However, the system is that it's not because there's a trend towards selling direct that every company, every brand, every industry should go direct. There is some reason for wanting to go direct, and there's some reason for having intermediaries. Intermediaries add some benefits. So what are the benefits of having intermediaries? The benefits is, I could start from any one of these, but the most obvious benefits is physical distribution. Someone has to take this product and deliver these products. The other obvious one is risk-taking. Risk-taking, anyone has any ideas of what is risk-taking in this situation? Anyone can imagine what is risk-taking?
Putting a lot of money up front that you may not be able to sell what you want to sell. Like buying a product that might not sell.
That's very, very correct. So they have to take inventory. So they're removing inventory from you, then they're taking this inventory, and then they have to pay for this inventory to move to them, then store them, then do the stocking, the warehousing, the inventory, the management of the goods, the sorting, and the timing. There may be some seasonality, and they have to wait. And to be more successful with the product, normally you have to have a J&D, but that J&D is not always 100% sure that it will succeed. So they're taking some financial risk. They're taking risk and they're financing the product, which means that you can find some way for them to pay some portion ahead of the time before it's being produced. Therefore, their payment is going to help you in paying as well. So they are sort of financing some of the work. So distributors don't like to do this. Most distributors won't do that. When I say most, is 90%. And what's interesting is when you work in countries like the US, they're not going to finance as much ahead of time than when you're working with selling products in Asia or the Middle East or Eastern Europe, because these countries, when they buy products from overseas, for example, they're more used to pay cash before it is shipped. So they do much more financing. So sometimes one reason you would want to work with a market is because they're much better at financing your product. And maybe they have a shorter delay of payment. So for example, when I sell product to Canada, one of the benefits of Canada is that they pay in 30 days. And versus when I sell to the US, depending on the company I sell from Europe to the US, it would be 6 months before they pay. So 30 days, 6 months, 120 days, there's a much longer delay. Negotiation is that they do the negotiation between them and the retailer. So you would imagine, but that's normal. Well, if you as a manufacturer, you have to make a negotiation with every retailer, that's a huge amount of transactions that you're gonna have to cover. So how many products do you sell? You sell 100,000 products. So you have 100,000 people that buy the product, but this is broken down into 1,000 stores. So each store sells to 100 people. And of that 1,000 store, you have 6 wholesalers that sells to them, people that are in the distribution channel. So as you have those intermediaries, that allows you to have negotiation at the level of every intermediary and not cross over sections. Negotiation here is very important because there's different requirement for negotiation depending on which level you're looking at the negotiation. The negotiation between the manufacturer, so we go back to this, between the manufacturer and the wholesaler, and then there's a negotiation between the wholesaler and the retailer. And so there is different level of negotiation, and then between the retailer and the consumers. Imagine if the retailer is asking directly to the manufacturer, it's going to be a different price that they negotiate. The manufacturer sells it $1 to the wholesaler, then the wholesaler sells it $1.50 to the retailer, and then the retailer sells it how much is he going to sell it? $7 to the consumer. So the price keeps changing, and if now the retailer or the consumer goes directly to the manufacturer, you have to make sure that you keep selling it $5, $6, $7 as well. Otherwise, then you start losing the type of negotiation and type of price structure and margin of your channel of distribution that you have in the traditional channel. So true, you're not going to sell at the same price as a retailer because the margin goes to one person or to two person, meaning less people than the traditional channel, but you should still have some closed pricing that you adopt between using traditional or between using direct. You use direct, it's easy to say, since we used to sell it for $1 and now we're going to sell it directly to the consumer, why don't we sell it $2 to the consumer? But then the problem is your product is going to be perceived as being worth $2 to the consumer, and you're never going to be able to go back to the retailer because through the distribution channel, traditional distribution channels, you would have many margins for each one of the intermediaries, and therefore your product could never be $2. It would have to be $6, $7. So you sort of cut the grass under your feet by going direct distribution with a price which has a low margin, which doesn't take into account what the price of the product should be. So obviously, today I can give you a perfect example of this. which is very unique. I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime, is the price of gas. If you look at the price of gas between today and 3 weeks ago, at the manufacturer level, it went from $40 to zero. And if you look at the price at a retail gas station, it went from $2.70 to $2.50. So it didn't change that much. They didn't go from $2.70 to zero, obviously. But that's why there's different margins between the different intermediaries. And that's how the price starts at 1 and ends up at 7 at the end. And the less intermediaries, the more you can reduce the price. But then you're creating a new price perception, which is going to be making it very difficult to go back to what it used to be. A very important subject, which will be asked to you in the quiz. So it's the two concepts of the distribution strategy, which are called pull and push. So push and pull are very basic. They should be understood in the sense that you either trying to do one or the other or both. The most common distribution strategy is push. Push is when you're trying to sell to consumers by using the distribution channel in order to go to the consumers, and you're trying to give an incentive in the distribution channel in order to go to the consumers. So the incentive is, why would a distribution channel carry my product? They would carry your product because this product is very famous. That's the number one. But very famous products are 2%, maybe less percentage of the product that are all around us. Most of the products are not that famous. So push is therefore one way to incentivize the distribution network to sell products that are not so famous, meaning that the consumer are not seeking. Consumer goes to a certain store because they expect specific product from that store. Maybe one store has Adidas and another store has Nike. If you want Nike, you have to go to that store. If you want Adidas, you have to go to that store. These are big brands, and these brands don't do push, they do the opposite. They do pull in that situation. So how would you do push is you would say, we want the distributors to push our brand to the consumers. Consumers go to the distribution channel, and therefore they are looking for in the incentives. So typical incentives is the distribution channel would say, buy 2 for the price of 1, minus 20% off. And so these discounts, those incentives will be given to the distributor to pass to the consumers. And these incentives of price of discounts to the distributor will incentivize them to want to push a product that they know is very price, is a good discount. And that's probably why the consumer is going to buy it. Distributors need cheaper products. Distributors look for good deals. They sell big brands and they sell good deals. So creating good deals is being focused on push distribution strategy. Good deals for the trade, so the distributor, which eventually will get to the consumers. Do all the good deals that you do to the trade get to the consumers? Not all. If you give a $1 discount to a wholesaler, so an intermediary, they may only give a 20 cents discount to the consumer. Sometimes they pass 100% through the system, but sometimes they pass a portion, and sometimes they pass nothing. They get a good deal, and then they sell it the normal price, and what they do is they try to make a higher margin for the products that they sell, which tells you that therefore push strategy is essentially to help with giving deals that incentivize the distributor, but also create higher profit margins for the distributors so that they want to push this product. Typical type of products where they would have a higher margin are lesser known products and also what's called private labels. Private labels are products which have the brand name of the distributor on it. So if we talk about Costco, for example, Kirkland is a brand of products which are produced for Costco. They would not be produced by Costco because Costco does not produce anything. Costco is a distributor. It's part of the channel of distribution. And therefore those brands would have lower prices because Costco will not advertise those brands beside through the point of sales. So point of sales incentives are push. If you find a product, and in this product there's a tag and it says coupon, or this a coupon, some kind of a reduction on if you have a membership card or something like this, this is push strategy. Now pull strategy is when you incentivize not the trade, not the channel of distribution, is when you incentivize the consumers by directly making the consumers want the product. So you advertise, you use celebrities, and people will buy this product because they want the same thing as what they've seen advertised. They want the same thing that they've seen the celebrity use. And therefore, the channel of distribution will only carry the product, not because they are being incentivized, they're getting a good deal, but they're carrying the product because their customers are asking for the product. In general, pull strategy is more expensive. In general, pull strategy requires a larger investment for the brand, for the manufacturer, in order to get that effect coming from the consumers seeking the product, forcing the distributors to carry the product. Push strategy is an effort which is more directly visible on the product by incentivizing the distributor to carry this product, because I could almost say you give it to them for free, they're going to sell it. Once they start selling it, the consumer wants it, and then you have a relationship with the consumer, and then you go into the pull strategies. Could you do both? You can do both. So the problem with doing both is you need to have a bigger marketing budget in order to be able to do both. You need to have a bigger team in order to do both. As this simple image explains, is push is producer incentivizing the wholesalers, who's then the wholesalers gives a deal to the retailers, who eventually gives a deal to the customers. Versus the pull strategy is the producer right away having some kind of incentives or some kind of input into the customer, which the customer is then going to seek through the distribution for the product. Push and pull are very good. And now with social media, didn't exist before. Social media is for the most part pull strategy. It's for the most part getting people to know about the product, getting to know what it's made from, where it's made, what it's for, who is using it. And therefore, through this association, then eventually people want to get the product and are seeking the product. And they are using the internet, they're using an app, and then buying the product. So that would be the new type of pull strategy. Other strategies of distribution, there are three, and these are very simple, so I'm not going to spend too much time. But because there's very simple common sense between these, which is that distribution strategies are one, intensive, meaning we're going to sell it. We're going to sell this everywhere. So an intensive distribution says the product is a convenience product, meaning there is not too many differences between these brands, the price is low, there's not too much research required. Therefore, we maximize the point of sales. We make it available in as many places as possible. Selective distribution is, there is some requirement. It cannot be everywhere, and it cannot be too specialized distribution, too exclusive distribution, but there's still going to be a review of where are the customers and focus on the area where there's the most customers to give the distribution. So in this situation, you have to think about the location, the potential of sales, and then you maximize the number of locations with the number of customers that you estimate in the area. So you're being selective. And then the last one is it cannot be everywhere. In fact, it's going to be in only one place. There's not two places that this could fit. There's only one place. So it's per territory, per area, there's one place through some exclusivity that this product is going to be available. Now, the business is a world of domination. The idea is that someone is taking advantage of someone else. So this is very fascinating, and this is very realistic, which is that if you are a brand, people buy you because you have a brand. They may be wanting the brand. They may be buying something because of its perceived quality. They may be buying something because it's some kind of patent on that product that nobody else has. They may be buying something because of some kind of rare resource that you use in order to make this. They may be buying something because it's the cheapest. They may be buying something because it has the best warranty. Okay. So all of these are the strengths, you know, from being a producer, but then you have to bargain this with the distributors. You can't be just producing, is you have to find a way to be selling the product. In business, there's always the need for a distributor. In business, the people oftentimes that makes the most money are either in finance, real estate, or distribution. And if you look at people that are, now there's another way to make money as well, it's technology. But and probably medicine as well, all this bio and pharmaceutical industry. But there is some bargaining power. You still need someone to distribute the product. And so this distributor has a lot of bargaining power. And if you had to think about who do you think has the most power, the brand that makes the product, or the channel of distribution that makes the product become available for the consumer to buy. So it's like, is it Coca-Cola or the channel of distribution of Coca-Cola? Which one is more important? Most of the time, we think it's Coca-Cola because people don't buy a distribution channel. The distribution channel is very abstract. They don't even know, for the most part, what is going on in a distribution channel. It's behind the curtain. People know about the brand, but they don't know all the work that is being done in the back. Now, again, because of the situation we're living in right now, we know of the importance of everything, a lot of things that are happening in the back in order for the products to make it during this, this pandemic crisis. And there's a lot of people that have to work in order to produce the product, but also work in order to make the product get to us. There's all kinds of logistical supply and function that needs to appear. So what is therefore the bargaining power between this channel of distribution and compared to the manufacturer? So this is important because it's basic knowledge that you need to have. It's sort of a common knowledge that you will have to have, and it's something that you're very likely to face. I mean, 99% chance to face very soon when you start working in a business or get a higher position or start your own business and have to face the situation of this bargaining power. So the product quality is really something that you have control as a manufacturer. You can decide of the quality. You can meet the criteria because there may be some regulation for the minimum quality, but you can improve this quality. You can look at getting a better supply of material to improve this quality. Or you can take shortcuts. So sometimes there's some products that are very successful and then the product becomes inferior because this company became very successful and mass produced, and now they're taking shortcut on the quality. And unfortunately, that if people don't see it, that's one thing, but eventually it's likely that they see it, and that will open a door for another manufacturer to come and make a product that has better quality. But the second thing is your reputation. So in that situation is brand equity. As a manufacturer, you have brand equity, or you have more or less some brand equity. Some manufacturers have very little brand equity, and some are not really manufacturing, and most of what they are known for is the brand. I work in the industry of watches, and there's a lot of brand of watches that are made by one manufacturer, and they all end up being made by the same manufacturer. And even though there's different brands, because they are private brands and manufacturers that sometimes don't even make any branded products. They just manufacture for specific buyers who own the brand and then take care of the commercialization of the product. So having a reputation is very important. Having control over the quality is very important. So if you have just a brand, you have the reputation, harder to control the quality. If you're a manufacturer, you control better the quality, and you have to think about your reputation. Contribution and profit making. When you are a manufacturer, you are able to make a product that has a high value for the consumers. The higher the perceived value, the higher there is a margin, and the higher there is a margin, the more incentives you can give to distributors. Distributors try to sell the product that they can make the most money from. So how much do they buy it for? How much can they sell it? Could that be one product a day? Could that be hundreds of products a day? That makes a big difference. And so that's an incentive when you speak to a distributor in negotiating a relationship with a distributor is how many products you expect that this distributor will be able to sell. If they have to do all the work of making this product known in the market, they are less likely to want your product. If they see that this product has already been established, they will see that it's more easier to sell and therefore faster to start making profits. Connected to this is this concept of how many customers do you have? If you have followers and regular buyers, this will become your brand reputation, but in terms of brand loyalty. And this brand loyalty is going to help on launching new products, is going to help in making it easier for creating an argument for the distributors to sell faster and easier. Now, the distributor bargaining power is the fact that they have some sort of location. So if it's a website, it's a domain name, it's a ranking on Google, it's some kind of accessibility. And the best accessibility makes the best distributor. The sales volume is the fact that when they buy, they don't buy 1, 2, 3, 4. They could be buying thousands. And therefore, a manufacturer is going to be more sensitive, more attentive to a distributor the more they buy, and distributors buy more than consumers. So if you ask would you like the best to manufacture? The consumers or the distributors? They're going to look at you and say, it depends. If it's for how much they pay me, is the distributors, because there's never been a customer that spend as much money on my company's brand and products as much as a distributor. However, they may have a more affinity with consumers because they're really making the product to satisfy the consumers. So the point here was that they are the largest buyer are your distributors, not your customers. Not only they're going to be making the biggest check, they're also going to be buying the largest quantity. So it's different things. There's a sales volume and there's a quantity of product volume, two different things, but therefore they have some weight. Distributors have weight because they can do more than consumers. That's why there is always a B2B business when there is a B2C business. Because when you B2C, you're selling to the consumers, that's really your final consumers, but in between, there will be a distributor, and therefore, you can be a B2B without being a B2C, but you cannot be a B2C without having been a B2B before. So before you sell the product to the consumers, you have to sell it to the distributors. If you're a very, very famous brand, you don't have to do that. You sell it to the consumers, and the distributors are going to just be doing what you tell them to do for the most part. And so that's also why there's so much conflict between manufacturers and distributors, that there are lots of distributors that are starting to become or engage in more manufacturing, and why there's so many manufacturers that starts also to take the position of also being a distributor in order to avoid having to negotiate all the time with their either manufacturer or distributors. What are the type of agreements that there are, an organization that there are? You have multiple styles of agreements. You have the system where you have a manufacturer that start developing wholesale and then let someone else do the retailing. You obviously have the type of manufacturer that does manufacturing, wholesaling, and retailing. You have the organization that may be just a manufacturer and then require some wholesalers. And the wholesalers may have some organization where they are creating multiple wholesalers that buy from at once and then share the inventory. You may have some retailers that do that. Retailers that group themselves together in order to be buying more from wholesalers. And then they dispatch, they share what they bought from wholesalers. They could be buying so much that these retailers end up buying such a large amount that they could go directly buy from the manufacturers. So Ace Hardware, for example, would be this way. Ace Hardware is multiple independent hardware stores that would bound together under an umbrella, under a name, Ace Hardware. And then through Ace Hardware, they would create a buying system so they could be buying directly from manufacturers. The benefit is instead of buying, I don't know, each store buying 12 hammers a week, is there would be 1,000 stores together and they would be buying together 12,000 hammers, and that would allow them to compete in their purchasing power and getting better prices with a franchise or a one roof wholesaler retailer that would be buying for all their stores, like Home Depot. Home Depot, they would be doing big purchases for all the stores. These big purchases will be done by a department of Home Depot that is like a wholesaler, internal wholesaler for Home Depot. And then they would dispatch through hubs of different regions to the various Home Depot, which are stores that belong to them. Retailers can do this, but backwards, where they would gather together and then buy from the manufacturers. Then you have franchisees and And there are some short-term and long-term agreements, because some it's just through an agreement that they work together, and sometimes it's through some kind of acquisition that they work together. So horizontal conflict occurs between firms at the same level of the channels. So horizontal is different retailers that will be in conflict. So it's like usually it happens, the simplest time it happens is when you sell to one retailer because they bought a lot. And then another retailer would want to buy the same price as, well, what happens is a retailer will notice that some store are selling at a much lower price. So normally everybody sells the bag of chips $4.99, $5, $4.98, and then suddenly someone sells it for $3.99. So it's $1 difference. And some retailers are wondering, why is this retailer $1 cheaper than anyone else? And we are usually a few cents difference, and this is $1. And then they would find that's because they got a special circumstance, a special arrangement through a negotiation. Maybe that retailer bought more. Or that retailer may have consciously decided to not make money or make less money. Or it could be they even lost money through a loss leader, the type of product that they sell under the cost. And that's illegal. If nobody finds you, which is very hard sometimes to find, so they start businesses, many businesses that are doing it. And then so they would find that this generates a conflict between the different stores. Horizontal conflict. Vertical conflict is when you have conflict between the channel members, from the wholesaler to the retailer, for example. So this conflict happens usually when there is an issue with payment. That's the most common one, I think, is when the wholesaler is not getting paid by a retailer, or when the retailer has asked for some kind of allowance, some kind of assistance, and they didn't receive it from the wholesaler, and then they decide not to push the product as much as they used to. And so vertical conflict is suddenly there's disagreement. The problem with this conflict is, as a brand, is you have to take actions, because the brand is really responsible for what's going on, even though these are distribution situations. Is you have to be aware of it, because even though even though you're not making money for doing the distribution, you're still responsible for your product to get to the ends of the customer, and therefore you have to be aware and constantly monitor the relationship in the distribution channel to make sure that everything works as the way it's supposed to, and minimize conflicts. So minimize conflicts is you want to make sure that people don't dump the price of your products. And so you want to be sure that if someone dumps the price of your products, you decide, for instance, not to sell products to them again. Sometimes the distributor may not care for this. Or what you could do is you could sell some limited edition products that you will sell to the people who have the best behavior, the most loyalty, and have shown that they treat your brand with respect. So treat your brand with respect is in terms of how much do they promote it, how much do they talk about it, how much visibility do they give your product. With distributors, most of the time is you have to pay for them to have this visibility. So if it's a retailer, the visibility may be, where do they put it on the website? The front page, the last page. If it's a store, in front of the entry, in some strategic places. So if they do this for free, means that they really care for the product and they want it to be successful. And they know that this product is building some kind of relationship with their customers, and they want to be associated as the store that helped build that relationship. Therefore, the people will start building some kind of trust in that store and some kind of satisfaction with that store. So they will continue buying from that store, expecting to discover something again. In most cases, the retailer will ask for some favors. The favors will be free samples. The favors will be promoting some events. Fully promoting the event by organizing the event or participating financially in some events that the retailer is doing is oftentimes what's expected. With the wholesaler, what the wholesaler will mostly want is that you participate in some of the incentives for their salespeople. So the salespeople of the wholesaler is working very hard to make the product be known first and make the product being purchased. And then once it's purchased, is they will work very hard to make that product in that retail store the product that is being pushed forward. So for the salespeople to do this, either they get a big incentives in terms of the commission that they get in addition to the fixed salary. Maybe they have no fixed salary, it's all commission. And oftentimes they ask for the bread to participate in that extra commission, extra bonuses that the salespeople will have for that wholesaler in order to push the product to retail stores. Another thing that is very common that they ask for is samples. The wholesalers will ask for you to give them samples, and either you give them samples in reducing the costs of their purchase. So participation for samples is a minus 5% on the invoice, or on the invoice you ask for 1,000 and we give you 1,050, there will be 50 that you don't pay. There are extra products that will be for free. So these decisions are very important, are very key to a wholesaler looking at a relationship with the manufacturer. And in that situation, and a retailer will do the same to the wholesaler. In that situation, that's the type of conflict that you see is someone's promised something and didn't do it. And then someone has to come and is complaining. It can be from the retailer complaining to the wholesaler or the wholesaler complaining about the producer. Do I have any questions? I think all this information is interesting. Nothing is really complicated, but it takes some experience. And so the more experience you have in distribution, the more all of this is going to sort of connect with you. Anyone has experience in distribution in the class right now?
I guess I used to ship jewelry out from a distribution center to J.C. Penney and Zales and Walmart.
Okay.
And I guess what we were doing is we had a supply chain in place from Indonesia and China, and we would import jewelry at a cost of about $2 to $3 per unit.
Okay.
We would rebrand all of it and we would market it to Zales for them to sell on their store shelves as well as at Walmart and places like that. And we would be selling it to them for about $18 to $25. And then they would turn around and they would sell that to their customers for $300, $400, $500 or more dollars. And it was really just figuring out not only how much inventory to keep on hand, because that was the inventory and the actual staff to go and physically rebrand the product was the most expensive part. But it was really just maintaining a good relationship with your clients, because when you're a distributor, any hiccup is going to cost your client tens of thousands of dollars when it only costs you $500, and they're not going to want to work with you again.
Yes, that's right. Well, thank you for sharing this, and I can totally agree with you. The cost and how the people perceive the costs. You know, I remember this retail store that was telling me, "Oh, what is going on? I see this product is being sold in. I'm in New York, and I see this product is being sold in LA for $59, and I don't understand. You sell it to me for $65. How could it be? You're ripping me off." Um, People are very on their edge in this industry and the relationship. There is very little loyalty. It's all about today. What have you done for me today? You know, keep doing things. They don't add relationship in terms of what I've done today, what I've done yesterday, 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 3. It's, you did something good yesterday, today you're doing something bad, you out. They don't say you've done 30 years of good things every day equals thousands. You make one mistake, it's fine. Everybody makes mistakes. So it's very tight relationship, and everyone is feeling very disposable, and everyone is very worried to say the wrong thing and to do the wrong thing and to rock the boat. And so there's a lot of hypocrisy, and that makes it very difficult to have those, to build a relationship. And another thing that is difficult too is when you finally build some relationship, that you can have some kind of trust between the different channel members. The person retires, or the person moves in a different branch in the business, the person moves in a different location for the company. They were East Coast, they go West Coast or whatever. And then suddenly you're starting over. So there's a lot of again and again and starting over, and the people change, and that's what's very difficult, is because for this to work, you need to have a lot of human contact and human relationship. But at the same time, everything you do, very little really stays and has weight. So a lot of people who go in these industries get very tired of continuously doing the same thing with different people and having to reinvent or rebuild a new relationship. So conventional marketing channel versus a vertical marketing channel is the idea that there's been some innovation even in distribution. And so here I'm specifically talking about the type of retailing where there could be some kind of methods where you have combinations of some of the intermediaries within. So I mentioned this before, is you could have a manufacturer that does some well selling, you could have a manufacturer that does some retailing, you could have wholesalers starting to become retailer as well. And so all kinds of mutation, and that's what makes it very interesting. Other type of mutation is the hybrid marketing system, where you would have understanding that you have to sell using all the channels, not just one. So you just don't sell just through a store. You just don't sell just through online. So Amazon is online, and now they're investing into stores. And next thing you know, they're going to start doing catalogs, possibly. And so they are developing multiple channels because there's different people that have favorite channel when they buy, and you don't want to specialize yourself in being a distribution company only using a channel, but you want to be someone that specializes in distributing products through the multiple channels, and therefore not miss the opportunity that each channel can bring to you. The other final one is the horizontal marketing system, is where you would have one location, but multiple franchise being on that location. So you would have a Home Depot with a Starbucks. You would have a Ralph's supermarket with a Wells Fargo branch. you would have a Home Depot with a pizza Domino. So they will take advantage of the fact that they don't compete, and they share the same customer. And in fact, by being together, they save time, because that's the idea of shopping, is people do it because it's convenient, and therefore it's convenient to find multiple type of services in one location. So what are the different channel design decisions? The first thing is, again, who are your customers? So depending on your customers, you're going to want to be a company that use push and pull. You're going to want to be a company that use intensive, selective, or versus exclusive. Then you define what are the objectives. Then you identify the different alternatives, the pros and cons of each one of the strategies. So based on who we're serving and the objectives, the sales objectives that we have, we want to go selective or exclusive. Pros and cons of selective, pros and cons of exclusive, recommended strategy that we're going to follow. And you evaluate these alternatives, and then you make a recommendation for one. Then you can do the same thing for going international, where in that situation is you cannot assume that if your product works in one market, it will work in another one. So you have to identify the type of customers, see if there's one that your product is more fit. It may be more fit for a different type of customers. Maybe a customer that is not so good, maybe it doesn't sell so well to women in America, but it will sell much better to women in Brazil. And in fact, it's different gender that you focus when you sell these products. So you have to, therefore, based on that different targets, you're going to have to look at different channel of distribution and different strategies that you would adopt in selling the product, because of maybe a difference of prices, or maybe a difference of number of customers that you would have in the area. What are the major logistic functions? Well, you have to transport the product. So you have to decide what are the method of transportation that is the most appropriate. Using train, using trucks, using the road, the water, the air, all of this is going to have to be defined. What would be the cost of obtaining this product, and then the cost of selling this product? Is there room for people to make a profit, having more intermediaries? The more intermediaries, the higher the likelihood that your product is expensive, and the higher the likelihood that this is an exclusive product, which requires some trained instructors or advisors to try the product, or to give them recommendation of someone that knows well the product. So in that situation, you will go exclusive. If it's less sophisticated, then you can go selective. And if you need no one to sell the product, but just some space through the distribution network, is you can go intensive. So, but you have to decide how many intermediaries, and you have to decide what will be the cost. Then someone's going to have to take care of the processing of the orders, receiving them and shipping and so forth. That's what Matt was just talking about, that he was involved in that aspect of the work. And then the knowing how much you have left, the warehousing, storage, and then organizing where things goes and the best processes to make things move, and know when you should be ordering in order to have some inventory, when and what you should be ordering and when and all that. So just in time inventory and adjusting the amount that you buy to have constant flow of product to supply for the needs. Because if suddenly you don't have any more, it can be a benefit, but it can only be a benefit if it happens not too often, because if it happens too often, it's going to bother the distribution channel. And not too long, because if it happens for too long, they're going to look for a different supplier, and then you're going to have to you would have built the momentum that you won't fully benefit. Someone else is going to benefit from it. So marketing logistics is what? Marketing logistics is not just shipping, meaning the outbound aspects. It's also receiving the product. So marketing logistics is about inbound and outbound. It includes supply chain and value chain management. So the idea behind supply chain and value chain is that you want to make sure that everything that is involved in moving the product adds value to the product. You don't want to have a wasted point of logistics. You want to make sure that everyone who's involved in the storing or the production of the product has a benefit. You're not making the product produced all over the place, but in certain areas because you want to save, maybe in terms of time. So this happened to me where I was making some products overseas, far away, and they were much cheaper. And then I found that the value was not just having cheaper products, even though they were well made. The value also was to have them available when I needed them. And the fact that they were far away, I was having a lot of problems ordering this product, getting them when I needed it. Sometimes I would have the product come too early, so I would have a huge amount of raw material and packaging and so forth, and I have a hard time finding a place to put it. And sometimes I would find out that I'm missing some packaging, for example, to complete an order. And so that's always a big bummer because getting an order is the hardest thing in a business, getting someone that wants to buy something and is willing to give you money. And once you have that, everything else is easy. And once you have this, if you find out that you don't have enough cardboard to make packaging, and that to make packaging, it's not going to work because this is the month of May and there is holidays, national holidays that are going to slow down the process by 2 weeks. And those 2 weeks are going to put you out of the schedule that was required by the client, and then you lose the sale. This happens more often than not. You discover that you didn't have the right logistics to accomplish the sales, when the logistics are much more controllable than the sales. You can't control the market for them to buy your product, but you can control much better the market to anticipate the workflow of everyone, the quality of what they're doing, and the timeliness of what they're doing and where everything is, and the accounting of it, the management of it. So the main transportation roads are the following. What's important to know about these, and that's sort of the simple question I may be asking about these, is if I was to move something that is dangerous because it's explosives, what would be the best methods? Would it be the rail, the truck, the water, the boats, the pipeline, or the plane? And so in that situation, you wouldn't want to use the rail, the truck, you wouldn't want to use the air, and maybe the best methods would be to use the pipeline because it's therefore not being transported by any vehicles. If I was to transport something that is not expensive and is very heavy, what would be best to use? So expensive, heavy, you could use the pipeline, you can use the boat, you can use the rail, and to some extent you could use the truck, but you wouldn't want to use the air. So then another question, why would you want to use the air? I would want to use the air because it's something that is expensive and it's something that requires a short amount of time because there is a need for a specific date. Why would you want to use a boat? You want to use a boat because the product is inexpensive, it's large, it has low value, it won't perish soon, and time is not the essence, it's the cost will be the essence to save some money. So in my situation, I have products that come from Europe, and oftentimes I have to make these decisions in terms of when do we need them. If it's a boat and it goes from Europe through the Panama Channel and then up north to Los Angeles, it is cheaper than if they go straight from Europe to the northeast coast and then take a train and come to the US. The second option of going to New York is oftentimes faster, but it's more expensive. And it's not a lot faster. So I've used it because there was a need to be faster, but not to be extremely faster. Using the plane, I've used also the plane to move cognac, and that had to do because there was an order that was paid, and there was a screw up at the production or from the customs or something like this, and there was a delay that I was going to lose the sales. And maybe I was not making so much money on that sales, but I made money on other sales, and there was more sales coming, and I didn't want to disappoint the customer. So I made very little money, or I made no money, and selected to take the plane for this customer to get the product on time. And oftentimes, because of that situation, they would get the product earlier than they needed, and not too earlier because they also timing things. So they would be just a little bit earlier, and they would be surprised, and I would bite the bullets by paying the cost of using the air, but I would keep a client that would sort of over-satisfy, and the next time they would want to reorder, they would come, and they would feel that we've treated them as best as we could. So transportation modes are very important. Now, choosing transportation modes is therefore depending on how quickly you need it, how dependable is this transportation, dependable in terms of safety, but dependable in terms of being sure that it's sort of accurately going to happen within the time. Something could be very quick, and yet you cannot really depend on it. It's sometimes very quick, sometimes not so quick. Availability is also where does it go, and how easy it is to use that form of transportation in the area where you need it. Then you would do some kind of cost analysis. There is usually an industry understanding of the cost of moving goods, specific goods per item. You know, it's 1 cent per carrot, and it's $1 per wine bottle, and you will know that this is the average industry price, and you try to beat that average by using other methods, or maybe slower methods, but with a cheaper price. You will try to move more products as well. So like if you're using shipping, is you use a different size of containers. The larger the container, the more product you can make. But a container maybe 20 foot, and another container, the next size maybe 40 foot. The cost of a 40 foot is, it could be 50% more expensive, yet you can put 2 times more products. But then you need to have the need to put 2 times more products, and sometimes what you do is you leave that container open for other people to put products in it in order to reduce the cost associated with your container by sharing it with some other people. So this analysis of the cost is very important. Flexibility is, like I said, is maybe you use multiple mode of transportation. As I mentioned, it could be a boat that goes to New York. So what's great is you can have some product left in New York, and it's more expensive. They say you want products in Los Angeles, they come from Europe. It is more expensive to have them go to New York, but you may take advantage of this by putting some products in New York. It would be cheaper if everything went to LA, but then what if you had to send some products in New York? You would have to do this later, and then this later will cost much more expensive than if you had started with the system of going to New York and then using the train. So there are many situations in distribution that I think are very related to having had the experience. And I have another class where I have a quiz question, which is why is it good for an entrepreneur to fail, and how come is failure good? I would say I think where you get a huge amount of failure is in distribution. In distribution, there's 100 mistakes that you can easily make, and you only become a good in doing distribution only after you've made those 100 mistakes. So hopefully they are not big. You just start making them, or you make them, but doesn't have too much incidents. But you have to sort of learn from doing it. There is the notion of bargaining power that I think is very important, and that's the one thing that you need to understand. If I had to say who's more powerful, manufacturers or distributors, that's a very interesting question. What do you think? Who's more powerful? Distributors or manufacturers? What do you think?
Distributors.
Yes. Why would you say that?
So I personally work in the clothing industry, and it's the same thing. We develop products and we work with manufacturers,
Yes.
and we also sell to big department stores. So what I've noticed is, like, if there's a loss and if something happens, the manufacturer has to kind of take the fault.
Yes, exactly.
Because they need it, because it's really to find, customers. So if you're getting a customer that's ordering large quantity, you don't want to lose that.
Yes, that's right. So that's it. That's the one thing that's sort of very frustrating is it's not a easy relationship, because as a manufacturer you almost have to take this position, not always, but it's very often the case that you're wrong. And in a way it's a healthy position, because I always say, who's the boss is the customer. But the distributors are not really your customer. They are just this thing in between that is required. And so because of that relationship that you have with distributor, that's very difficult. That's why the direct selling to consumer became so fashionable, so popular, because that way you don't have to deal with this in between. And obviously, I had a very personal experience in February, and I told you this was going to happen. Then it happened, and this was the best sales. I had influencers that I organized something in the back with not with a distributor. I have run into someone who manage a Facebook page which has to do with spirits, and these people are just individuals, and they have 8,000 followers, but very, very active. These 8,000 followers, they post every day. It's a very dynamic Facebook group. And eventually they told me that they wanted to start recommending products, and that they wanted to have the products with their name on it. So what I did is I made a cognac bottle. Well, what I did is I made lots of samples of cognac that I sent to the leader of that Facebook group, and those leaders tasted one that they really liked, and they said, that's the one we want. So I made that cognac, and then I said it was selected by that group of people from Facebook, blah, blah, blah. And those people that belong to that Facebook group, they really believe in this peer-to-peer evaluation, instead of having some kind of person who's a guru that they don't know if they can trust, that is in magazines and all that. So they trust the guru from Facebook more than the guru in the magazine. So Facebook generated this. This is the world we live in. I met with these people. They were authentic. They are influencers, which are very different than most influencers. Normally influencers, you have to pay them. These people are true, authentic, passionate people that are interested to grow their level of influence before making money from being an influencer. So they're growing. So they tasted, they like one. I created a label. It's the same label as my other labels, but it says indeed, selected by that group, blah, blah, blah. Then they told me it's going to be for sale in Texas, in one city. We're going to test it in one city, in 4 stores, only 4 stores. So just to give some name, it was for test in Houston, just Houston, 4 stores. And so there was 600 bottle of cognac. I mean, 600 bottle, $100 bottle cognac. So it's not a cheap cognac. $100 bottle, a 600 bottle. Hey, it could take me several months, unfortunately, to sell that in the entire 50 states, you know. But then there they were saying maybe we could sell it in just a few days. So, you know, 6 months versus 3 days. I was like 3 days better. And if it's full store, can you imagine if we could do more stores, more cities, and more states together? So then came the last weekend of February, and it was a Saturday, and they just posted on Facebook, those 3 individuals on that Facebook group. Hi guys, this is the new product. That's what you need to talk about. That's what you want. This brand selected by us, blah, blah, blah. The 600 bottles sold in 2 hours. Normally what I take 6 months took 2 hours. And the beauty of this is there was no more intermediaries. It was the manufacturer and the consumer, and they were connected on Facebook. And there was an intermediary in between. So this intermediary was just another individual that was just saying, this is good stuff. This is what I recommend. Yet, because all of this is regulated, we had to have people use various licenses. So there's someone that has to be the wholesaler, and there's someone that needs to be the retailer. And so essentially this was like this, but I'm not saying totally the truth, because there was other people that had to be in there and that I had to use: the importer, the distributor, the retailer, and the intermediary. So it was like this, if I say it correctly. But what happens is these people, what we told them, since you're not doing anything, this is a product that we're going to tell you to put in that store that day and so forth. You cannot make the same markup. So when you are, and this is something you have to learn because it's sort of a basic 101 of being a business person. When you sell a product as a manufacturer, how much is going to be the product at the end for a consumer? So $1 manufacturer, what is the ratio most of the time? So let's say a bottle of milk is $6 at Ralph's. How much was it sold by the farm? What do you think?
$2.
$2. Yeah, so you could say that 2 to 6. So it's the ratio is 5 to, well, no, not 5, 4. So let's say 5. 5 is the average. 4 to 6. That's an average for overall business, because it could, if you're looking at diamond, that's not the average. A diamond is what? It's like 50 times. You buy the $1.
We were literally buying them for $2, selling them to Zales for 20. They were selling them for 500.
Yeah, exactly. So jewelry, all of these, it's a different ratio. But if we took from most, high-tech products, there's a lot of products like that. There's a huge margins, but
so are you talking about like the gross margin? Where you have the revenue minus cost of goods sold or cost of goods manufactured, that line item? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that's the ratio that multiplies the product. For example, I have a pen here. This pen, if you were to buy it, that probably will work with 5 times what you bought it and what it sold. Obviously, if this pen had a brand on it, Parker or something like that, then it becomes a little different too. But the point I'm mostly trying to make is that the ratio of how much the product multiply themselves from manufacturer to consumer is something that is sort of a secret. It's a business secret, and it's sort of an industry secret that consumers are not supposed to know. Yet, there is a formula. If you go work in the used sales car, there is a formula. If you sell, I don't know, Furniture, there is a formula. In this industry, they know the formula because what happens is they constantly speak to supplier. This person comes and tries to sell chairs. Oh, I have these chairs made in Romania. Oh, I have these chairs made in Missouri. Oh, I have these chairs made in Mexico. And every time they look at the chair and they know the average price that the consumer are going to buy it, and then they look at the ratio of how much these people are selling it. So just to put it into another terms now is what is an importer normally makes a margin of 20 to 30% on average of things that we see are imported. You go to Long Beach Harbor and you see everything that comes. The person that brought it is an importer. And this is you multiply by 1.3, let's say, 1.25. Now, the retailer does, after the importer, you have the wholesaler. So they buy from the importer in large quantity, but few things, not many variations, few variations, but in large number. They wholesale. These people will have also a markup, maybe 28, the average, a little bit more than the importer, 28. And then you have the retailer, and then the retailer is more like between 25 and 50. So you multiply by 1.5. So that's why you end up with a product that is 4 or 5 times more expensive. It's because you have the multiply by 125, which is multiplied by 128, which is multiplied by 150. Then you add the costs of moving all of this, the taxes of moving all of this, and that's a multiplied by 5. This was $1, and now it's $5 at the store when the consumer buys. So it is very important to respect these, understand first what are the percentage in your industry and respect them. I mean, that's one thing I really like in the watch business is the ratio is very high. It's something that I don't really like in the cognac business. The ratio is very low. The profit margin for selling cognacs is not very high. It's a luxury good, it's expensive, it's rare, but for some reason, it's a low profit margin, not a high profit margin. Versus the watch business is a very high profit margin. And by comparison, it's night and day. So when you choose a business, when you go into a business, I think this is a very important consideration, is what is the difference of margin? And that's why I like luxury brand. And that's why I've studied this since 1993, is I like the fact that there's always a comfortable margin. Not a comfortable margin because I know I can screw up. I mean, that could be a reason, is you have more room for mistakes, but also a comfortable margin because you can really focus on making less and still make a lot. And you don't have to really focus on constantly making more and more and more to keep up with the rest of the world. Because if you're making pens like this, you have to make more and more and more and more in order to make some money. More and more and more and more of these to make some money. Because there's always a factory somewhere that's going to be cheaper than you. But with luxury, it's more protected. Yes, any questions?
I wanted to give a real world example, kind of that ties back into the jewelry I was talking about earlier.
Yes.
You know, I signed a bunch of NDA for this, but it's been 5 years, and in the state of California, this contract has already expired. Okay. And we had the exclusive rights to brand tungsten rings as Shaquille O'Neal brand jewelry for sale at Zales. Yes. And the same ring, it was literally the same ring. You can charge anywhere from like 40 to 50% more just because we took it out of a plastic bag. We put a little paper tag on it that said Shack Line, and then we put it in a different plastic bag that could be recycled. And then we took the non-recyclable plastic bags and we threw them in the garbage so that Zales can say they were eco-friendly as part of their marketing campaign. And then they just filmed Shaquille O'Neal walking around with a bunch of this jewelry, and all of a sudden they were able to sell something for hundreds of dollars more with really only 1 or 2 days of marketing preparation and recording.
Yes. Well, thank you, Matt, for sharing this, because you're right. This is a real world experience you've had, and I'm glad that you keep participating, because that was my very point at the beginning. Is if you've had experience in distribution, this whole concept that I'm discussing will make total sense. And in a way, product is very interesting because there's a lot of creativity, but distribution is really where being smart is very important. And then you have to be smart in different ways, and you have to have different ethics. Obviously, what you're talking about, I don't know that you could say that this is maybe the piece that is sort of a bad ethic is the company that would, change the packaging into another packaging just so to look like they're doing something for the environment.
From Zell's perspective, they don't care. When they buy it, it's eco-friendly. They don't want to know what they're
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that's why a lot of companies like Amazon set up all of their direct shipping to their customers as a third party, so they can skirt all of these little ethical marketing concerns.
Yes, very true. So you have to understand the weight, the importance of distribution, and the fact that if you look, some of the wealthiest people are into distribution. There's a lot of margin to be made in there. There is a lot of marketing that can be used in there. And in some way, when you think about who deserves really our attention, Ford or the dealership? And really it is Ford, but the dealership is, that's what I'm trying to say, is getting to be making the most money. And so a little bit like in the music industry, and that's why it's been a big problem for such a long time, is the people that made most of the money are the distribution company, the publisher and all this, not the artist. The artist gets most of the fame. People are now in love with the distribution company, BMC, Polygram, Universal, Capitol, Warner. People are now in love with these. They are in love with the artists. Yet the artists are the one that makes a small portion, very small portion. And I mean, you just Google this, and there's books and movies on that subject. There's so many stories about Michael Jackson and the Beatles, how they were abused and making. So they were making a lot of money, but so little they kept from the money that was made for all that what they were doing, because it's an issue of margin. Is, you make a disc, the disc is sold for $100, not $100, for $20. There's $1 that goes to the musician and everything else to the distribution channel. So it's important, even though now I'm looking like I'm talking down on them, it's also important to understand that there's a cost in distributing. There is a cost. And therefore it's normal that they make comfortable margin because they have big costs. The one cost is that they have to have a good cash flow in order to constantly buy product and be paid later. And therefore taking these risks, and therefore financing this product, and therefore buying the structure, the infrastructure for moving and logistics. But the biggest cost of a distribution, I'm talking about a distributor or wholesaler, not a retailer, because the biggest cost of a retailer can be the store, the physical store, or maintaining the infrastructure of the website, e-commerce and all that. But the most expensive expense for a distributor or wholesaler are their salespeople. Their salespeople is by far the most expensive, because they have to have good salespeople.